Hello everyone, this is White One Auto checking back in again today. And what we have here in the back of one of my rental houses was a 5.3 LS just sitting out here in the junk. So instead of me just scrapping this thing, I will break this thing down and we're going to bore and hone the cylinders out to a 4-inch bore, make it a 6.0 out of a 5.3 block, because the engine is free and we have our own Sun and SV15. So let's get to it. Okay, so we finally got our stones in for our smaller bore size on our 5.3. Remember, this is our 5.3 to 6.0 project. And you can see still 5.348. So we have the smaller size stones in there. And we also, you can see, we have our dial bore gauge. We got a 4-inch standard in there, and we are on 0. And our gauge is set up on 0. So remember, we're gonna remove a lot of stock out of here. So these are 150 grit diamonds. And you can see we're also using our iron 6.0 block program. And let's see what the cylinders measure now. So, and our dial bore gauge won't even go in because it is so small. So let me just grab a pair of calipers right quick. I should have a pair someplace. Yep, we do. So we will zero these out. And let's take to see what is our bore reading now. So 33758. So I think stock 5.3 bore is 3780. And of course, if you know, using calipers like that is not a real accurate measurement. So what we are gonna do is start running this program here. Let us level this off. So let me start getting this thing touched in and make sure we're not crashing our brand new stones. And so we got about 222,000 material to move. So we're gonna hone with these stones, which is, like I said, 140 or 150 grit, till we get about 10,000s or 5,000s under. And then we'll switch to a 320 grit stone, or maybe no, at 5,000s. Yeah, I'm sure at 5,000s we will switch to a 320 grit stone and diamond, excuse me, a 320 grit diamond, and then we will get our finish bore. And I don't think we're gonna have any problem at all running this 5.3, boring it out as a 6.0. So let us continue. And like I say, one of the main reasons is I really started looking at 5.3 blocks. You can see how big that shadow line is on where the gasket was. And then you can just take a measurement here. We'll go in between cylinders. Here, let me pull this hone head out. So what we will do is, I know this is not a sonic wall check, but this is what we're doing. So you're 6.35. Now let me grab a 6.0 block. I know I got one around here someplace, because we got tons of blocks. This one isn't fair because this is a 6.0 block that we bored to a LS3 size. So it's actually going to be like a 414 because it's getting a bigger crank in it. I got to remember what size it's going to final be. But so this is a factory cast iron 6.0 block. And so you are at 441. So that's how much material you have to remove from both sides. And that is what, oh yeah, and we also, like I said, it took us a couple months to get those stones in. So we've added a bridge port. We moved our parts washer down because the parts washer used to be where the bridge port is, but we moved that down. And so yeah, so we've moved the parts washer down, put it right next to the cylinder hone. And yeah, so we got, so hopefully, so our balancer is probably gonna go over here where this messy work table is. And yeah, so God has really been good to us. So let us continue. We're gonna drop this hone head back down in here, and I'm gonna carefully do that because I don't wanna crash my brand new stones that I spent months waiting on and hundreds of dollars for. So let me get this set up. So as I stated before, ideally, this is not the best scenario to do this in. You would want to bore it if you were gonna do this, but our mill is not set up for that, so we are gonna hone it, because one of the most important reasons is, if you see how much that stone is protruding, I normally like the stone to protrude at the top about 3/8 of an inch. But we need to make sure that we are getting to the bottom of the bore down there, because if you don't, you will create a step, and that will be a major problem there. The piston won't slide in and out easily, and then you will have to bore it. So you can see we're getting down there. So what we are going to do is continue along with this path, and then as we get closer, maybe say 10 thousandths or 15 thousandths, we will probably then adjust the stone out a little bit. Well, maybe closer to 5. And we also have to dress these stones. So dressing them means that you have to keep measuring your bore to see how the bore taper is going, because these are brand new stones. So it's gonna be some taper in them. Then you have to grind away and dress the stone. And then, so there's just a lot involved with this. So we have to reset up our gauge to 380, I believe is where I will set it, so we can dress our stones. Probably 388, just so we can make sure everything is coming along evenly. But we started on a center cylinder. This one here will probably need to go maybe just a hair more up, but I'm happy with how it's looking now. So it'll just be a long time of boring and checking and dressing the stones. And once we get the stones dressed in, then we can just let it fly. So I've got to reset my dial bore gauge and continue on. So everything is going well. So what you will notice is these paint marks in the cylinder. So we can take out 40 thousandths at a time with our diamonds on one automated pass. So what we're gonna do is remove 120 thousandths. That'll be 3 times through. So we'll put a mark here for the first, here for the second, and there for the third, so we can keep track of how we're doing because we're removing so much material. Then that will put us at 3.9 on our bore. And then once we achieve 3.9, we will pull these diamonds out and put a set of diamonds in that will take us from 3.9 to our 4.0 bore. So that's the way this will work. Okay, so about 24 hours later, we're on our third pass here with our smaller stones. So right now, this pass here should get us to about 391, I'm thinking. So, like I said, we just got these marks set up because we want to speed through removing the material. And then once we get done with that, we will put our final stones in to bring it in a lot closer there for us and get our finish. So we can then clean it and assemble our 5.3 board out to a 6.0. So that's where we're going. And you can see how the machine is removing material. This is the dwell meter right here. So we're just gonna keep, we should have to do about 2 passes in each hole because we can take about 40 thousandths a pass, but our pistons are a little bit under 4 inches as all pistons are, but these, the coating is kind of worn off nicely on them. So, no, excuse me, these aren't the actual pistons. So, hold on, let me find one. You know what? I have made an executive decision. We are gonna use these pistons because they originally were for an LS2 that I took apart that had very minimum wear. But I think we had the board a little bit larger, well, hone it, excuse me, a little bit larger than I thought. So we should be using these pistons. I'm gonna measure one up for you right now. So you can see this is what our measurement is. So we're gonna hone this thing really, really tight at 4 thousandths. So just so we can make sure that we don't get any piston slap, because I do plan on abusing this engine. We are gonna put it through the paces, much like this engine right here is through the paces. This is a 400 plus cubic inch LS stroker we're building. You can see we're still using our 5.3 block there. And everyone that says you can't do it, we believe we can. So that's why we are going to. So keep following along. Hope everyone can see we got our 4-inch standard in, and we're at 0. You can see now all these cylinders have X's in them. So what that means is that we were done with our smaller stones. We're gonna put our larger stones in now, which will give us a smoother finish and take us to our final bore size of 4.0. So let's grab our dial bore gauge and let's see how much material so we still have plenty to do. So we're gonna start working on this thing and keep it going. Let's see, where are we at here? So we're about 80 thousandths under, and that's kind of correct to where our other stones should take us, because they were like 3.9. Well, they were 3.88. So these boards are around 3.9 something. So we just need to hog this stuff out and continue on. So that is what we will do. Okay, so we are getting close. This cylinder here, I went over by mistake. I completely brain farted and messed up. So this cylinder here is 4.0055. The rest of them are getting close. We are starting to get close to where we need to be, and we'll show you here on this one. So that's where we're at. So we're gonna start using our home pass 2 now. Let me show you our setup there. So that's home pass 1, and home pass 2 is what's gonna bring in our crosshatch there, our 45 crosshatch. So we will start bringing this in. I think you can see the crosshatch a little bit better on this one. This one has been fully honed and had the plateau brushes ran through it. So you can see the difference there. So we're gonna start bringing these things in and getting them to our exact size of right at 4.00. So we're all done honing this thing out, and look at how much of a mess it made. All of this slurry, it's because we had to hone out about 220,000. So we'll just double check our bore size here. See, we got a 4-inch standard in there, and we are set on 0. There's our 4-inch standard. So let's take our dial bore gauge, let us set it in. You can see we are on 0 there. So let us come over here and make sure we are straight. And that's where we're at there. Make sure we're straight. We're trying to do this one-handed. We are good. So our next step is we remove these stones and place our plateau brushes in, and then we put our final finish on the cylinders. So let's do that. So these here are our plateau brushes. This is what they look like. So we stick these down in the cylinder. I'm gonna run it through probably for about 12 seconds, and then that should give us, so you see what the finish looks like now, and that'll clean it up a lot. So let us do this. I'm gonna run it through one more time. Now, this is what our finish looks like now. So we'll go ahead and do that for the rest of all 7 cylinders, then get this thing out of here and wash it up and start the assembly. So I said, let me do this because somebody will claim it's trickery, because I'm not going to stick the dial bore gauge in here again after they have been plateau honed. You'll see where we are. So you see there, this is our same 5-3 block. Oh, wait, let's move it in closer here. Where's that? Where's that? Oh, there we go. 5-3-4-8, same block. someone will claim that we swapped it. So, see, it's the same 5.348 block. So we're all done in the home. This is what our cylinder finish is looking like. And remember, this hole with the X is the one that I mistakenly overhoned, excuse me. It's like 6,000, no, 5.5 thousandths over. So we're gonna coat the piston that goes into there a little bit thicker. And this is it. So let's get it out and clean it up. So we got our 5.3 block fresh out the hone, and you can see how the bottom of our cylinders look. So what we're gonna do is clean this thing up, slap some bearings in it, freeze plugs and cam bearings and pistons and rods, and get some oil pressure. 4.0 bore, 6-liter bore, 5.3. So we got our 5.3 block on the stand. I believe we did this earlier in the video. Let's see what our wall thickness is between the two cylinders. What are we? Let me make sure we're getting. So we saying 401. Okay. Let's come over here to a factory 6.0 block. Let us see what we have here. Let me move this. Uh-oh. We didn't want to do that. Let us come down up in here. Yeah, that's the 0. So we're 407. Okay, so now what we are gonna do is we are gonna start assembling this thing. We're not gonna deck it, because I don't believe it's necessary for this, what we're doing. We're just gonna put some cam bearings in it, wipe our cylinders down, and start our assembly. Okay, so we got our 5.3 block, it's all clean. So now it's time to do assembly. So let's go over the parts for our assembly. So first, our crankshaft is a Gen 4 58-inch X crank. We're gonna run Moly Cleveite bearings for rod. So these are the mains, these are the cam bearings, and these are our rod bearings. So you can remember, so we're running Gen 4 6.0 pistons with Gen 4 rods, and we've already got our ARP bolts installed. We have a new melling expansion kit, expansion plug kit for us. We have new new LS lifter trays, new LS side bolts, and the camshaft that we are running is this BTR camshaft right here, because we are planning on running this thing on boost. We're also gonna run LS7 lifters. We don't soak our lifters so we can properly measure for push rods. Then that gets us to our timing chain set. So this here is gonna be our timing chain set. It is a Rollmaster, and we are gonna run a milling oil pump. Just a standard volume, standard pressure oil pump. So that pretty much takes care of the bottom end, as well as we have a new rear cover, and we're just gonna run a factory front cover. To round out our oiling system, we're gonna use an improved racing oil pan baffle, as well as a Holley oil pan. We will show you that a little bit later. And we're gonna use a Fel-Pro oil pan gasket. And then that should pretty much wrap up our bottom end. And now what everybody likes to see is our cylinder head choice. Because we now have a 4-inch bore, And the minimum bore you can run with these LS3 style AFR heads, which I love AFR heads, is a 4-inch bore. So we're gonna run these AFR heads. And we're gonna run a LS9 head gasket. And to clamp everything down to the block, we are gonna use some more ARP fasteners. So that's pretty much everything all wrapped up. So what we need to do first is we need to get this block painted and get our cam bearings inside of it. So we will do that. We're gonna use our BHJ tool to press our cam bearings in. And then once the cam bearings are all in, then we're gonna paint the block. So let us do that. Okay, so we got all our cam bearings installed, and we know they are lined up with our oil hole because you can see our hole right there. Let's take a pick. And you see how deep that pick sets in there? That lets us know we're in with that oil gallery. So what we'll do is test our cam. We'll slide it in the correct way and just make sure it turns freely. So we have our cam in, and this thing turns effortlessly. See, we're barely putting any pressure on it. We can one finger turn it and it spins. And that's because these are the correct cam bearings and they are aligned correctly. That BHJ tool makes this thing a cakewalk. So it's time for me to pull this cam out carefully, mask off this block, and paint it up. So we have our block all painted up. You see it's still a 5.3 block that we bored over. So while we still have it on this table, I'm gonna put my main bearings and my crank in and my main caps on, get all those torqued down, slide our cam in, our front cover, our thrust plate, and our rear cover, because it's much easier to do while it's on this table, and then we will put it back on the engine stand. Okay, so we are what I like to call cooking with grease. We got our camshaft installed. That thing turns freely. We have our crankshaft installed. That turns freely. We have all our gallery plugs in, even the one for the coolant back there. Our mains are torqued down, and our rear cover is on. And we've also put our 58X crank sensor in now, because this is a Gen 3 block, remember, a Gen 3 5.3 block, but we're running a Gen 4 crank and rods in here. So that is going to take a 58X gray crank sensor, and our camshaft still has the reluctor ring on the back of it for a 1X camshaft sensor. So we're still gonna run the factory style camshaft sensor and our 5.3 board to our 6.0 block. So we're gonna pack up right here for the night, and tomorrow we will file some piston rings, put this thing back on the engine stand, and we should be able to button it up tomorrow, because we just got pistons, heads, push rods, oil pump, timing set. So yeah, so we should be able to button this thing up tomorrow. So we'll check back in as soon as we get back on it. So just one more time to confirm, we'll show you on camera again, still a 5.3 block. We have our dial bore gauge. It's set up. You see we are on 0. We have a 4-inch standard in there. Our gauge is reading 0. So let us. So now we'll place this inside of our bore. Now this one here will be way over, so we're not, just due to the way I'm holding the gauge, we're not going to get a super accurate measurement. Let me hold it correctly here with this hand here. This is our cylinder with the X that is way over. So that's why you're seeing that. And so then now let's go over, we'll grab a mic. And I'm not gonna be able to do this one-handed, but we'll mic a piston. So you see we're miking our piston. You'll see where we're at there. And this is a 3 to 4 inch caliper here. So it's a 3 to 4 inch mic. So this is indeed a 4-inch bore 5.3. So let's get started assembling this thing. Yeah, one other thing I forgot to say, well, I think I may have forgot to say. So for our piston rings that we are about to gap, we're gapping the top ring at 24 and the second ring at 26. So that's our gap, 24 and 26. And once again, these are our rings. That is your part number right there, because these are like, it's an LS2 style 6.0 piston. So this one happens to take that 1.2, 1.5, 2.5 ring. And this is the part number for our ARP rod bolts, which are already in the rods. So that's what we're using for rod bolts. So let's get these piston rings gapped. Okay, so we got all our pistons in with the exception of number 5, which has been recoded because we're like 5 thousandths over on number 5. So we're gonna install piston number 5, and then all the pistons will be in. Okay, so our last piston is in. This thing still rotates fine, so we're coming along well. Short block is pretty much done except for a timing set, but we got to take another break right quick. So we are going to clean up our mess over here, slap a bag on this thing, and take a break. Let me just bring number 1 up to what I believe to be top dead center. And we'll get it. We'll verify that later on. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't deck the block, is because you see these LS pistons already sit pretty high in the block. So that's why we didn't deck it. So we'll be back with should be the rest of this assembly. So this is our camshaft part number here. It's an oldie but goodie from BTR. I don't even think they make it anymore. And here goes our cam specs. So you can see this is our intake. See, our low bliff is 617 with a 1.7 rocker and 595 for the exhaust. And we are using a 1.7 rocker. We're gonna run these Scorpion rockers right there. But before we can get there, we have to get our Roadmaster timing chain in and our milling oil pump. And then we can put our Improved Racing baffle and our Holley 302-2 or -3 oil pan. So let us do that. And you can see our timing set has a Torrington bearing on the rear, and it has a multiple adjustable keyway for when you're degreeing in your camshaft there. So we'll get this thing installed, and then we'll put our oil pump on. So we got our oil pan and our timing set on, all torqued down. So we're going with our windage tray. And you can see it has these little washers that locate it, that go underneath the nuts. Then you just don't install one where your pickup tube goes. And it comes with instructions. So we're gonna get this bolted down and then put our pickup tube on and get everything torqued in place. Well, we have to torque it down, the windage tray, and then put our pickup tube on. So oil pumps on, windage tray, pickup tube. Now next we will put our front cover on and our gasket, and then put our oil pan on. So we're gonna use some ARP fasteners for our front cover, and we got a new seal installed and a Felpro gasket that we're gonna put on. Okay, so we got our new balancer on with a new bolt. Everything there is all torqued down. Our front cover bolts are still loose. So now, since our balancer is centered in our seal of our front cover, now we can torque these bolts down to 18 foot-pounds. So this is the oil pan we're using, a Holley 302-3. It has extra clearance for strokers, oil drain back hose on both sides if you're running a turbo, and it works with our improved racing windage tray. We're also going to use these ARP bolts to fasten it down and look nice. So we got the oil pan, the balancer, the front cover on there, and it looks pretty good. So let's roll this thing over. We'll put our lifters in with new lifter trays, and then we can get to the fun part. So we're gonna use genuine GM LS7 lifters. That's the part number. You see when we pull them out, we have that gold clip in there, and that's what we like to see. And new GM lifter trays, that's our part number there. So we'll get this installed in our engine, and then we can put our dowel pins on and bolt our cylinder heads on. Well, we'll probably put our cam sensor, oil pressure sensor, and our valley cover on after we get that done. Okay, so this is the valley cover that we are using. It is from Holley, and I think it looks very, very nice. So we'll give you one last view of our pistons. You can see it's still our 5.3 block there. These are our pistons in here. You can see it still registers 5.3 there, because we are ready to start bolting our cylinder heads on. These are the head gaskets that we're going to use, and we're going to use these beautiful AFR LS3 style quart heads that require a minimum 4-inch bore. Here, let's take our calipers out here again, just so everyone can see. And remember, this will read just a shade under 4 inches. But so you can read what it's saying. So that's definitely a 4-inch bore. So this is our larger bore here. Yeah. So still our same old 4-inch bore 5.3, and we're gonna have a really good engine combination here. So we'll let everybody see our piston part number one more time here. Where's it at? Where's it at? Oh, there we go. Now let's take a look at these beautiful LS3 heads. So this is our part number. These aren't the small bore LS3 heads that they have now. This is the regular size bore that requires a 4-inch bore to work. So we just got to unbolt these. See, they're bolted down. That's our part number again. You can see here it says Mongoose in there, I believe. Well, that's our part number. So that's our part number there, or our serial number, excuse me. This is our part number. So you can see, yeah, we'll just pull this thing out of here. You can get a look at those beautiful square LS3 ports. So let me get these things unbolted and we'll start putting them on our engine. Okay, so before we install them, I just thought everyone would like to see our nice AFR heads. So let me flip it around so you can see our part number, our serial number, so you can see what we're working with. They come with their own rocker pedestals, and we're gonna use their recommended rocker arms. So we're gonna get this thing to really make some good steam once we get oil pressure. This thing, this 5.3 with a 4-inch bore and 6.0 pistons will really run great. You see what the combustion chambers look like. So let us get these things bolted down. So we got our heads placed on, and we're gonna use these ARP fasteners to bolt it down to our block. Okay, so let us discuss the final members of our valve train. One are these rocker stands, which come with the AFR heads. You get 2 in the pack. Then Trend came through with us like always for some push rods. We are gonna measure, but we think these will get us what we need, and depending upon how they fit, we'll determine how far we will rev this thing until we get our correct push rods in. A little spider there. Then these are our rocker arms. They are for this specific head application. They are from Scorpion, and they're offset. So you have an intake rocker, which is offset, and an exhaust rocker, which sits forward. So, and it comes with bolts. And it came with studs with like mounting plates, but I don't think we're gonna use these. I believe we're gonna use the ones that came with our cylinder heads, but we will read our instructions and do a little bit of research and see what works out best, and then you will know. So we've already made our decision. With these rocker arms, we won't be using the ARP rocker stands, because there's an interference fit between the rocker body and the stand. So we are definitely going to use the stand that came with the rocker arms. So that is what we're going to do, because you see how that doesn't clear there. But on the supplied stands from Scorpion, they work great. So that is what we're gonna use. Okay, so we got our valve train all set. Next thing we need to do is just lubricate all of this. We got this comp spray that we use, and then we're gonna just squirt some oil down in all the valve springs. But next I will show you our valve covers. So these are our valve covers. Is this the front of the box? Let me. So this is what we're using for valve covers. So we need to oil up that valve train and then get our valve covers installed. So this is how it would look after we lube it up and spray it down. So it's time to put our valve covers on. So this is what our valve covers look like installed. This, by the way, is ARP hardware. It does not come with the valve covers. We had to purchase this separate. And the next time we check back in, we're gonna check in on the run stand with this thing ready to make oil pressure. This is the part number for the valve cover bolts. Okay, so one thing I failed to do when I was putting the engine together is, you see, this is a 58X crank sensor. Now, I'm gonna use a 24X Holley harness because it'll dress out better on the Gen 3 motor. But you see how you have that tab in there? So what we've gotta do is grind that tab out so the connector will fit in there. And we're gonna use a 24X harness, a Gen 3 style harness, so it'll dress out better. I was gonna use this Gen 4 harness, but the cam sensor doesn't reach in the back as well as I thought it would, and I don't wanna modify this harness because I can still use it on the correct application. So we'll run our 24X harness with our correct injector harness and get our coils mounted, and then do our custom setup and our software.
As you can see right now, our engine is fully dressed on our engine run stand, and it does not look as pretty as it did before. And the reason why we're running this intake, because these take square port heads, and this is the only available square port intake I have, because I don't know exactly how I'm going to run it in the car, so I have not purchased the other intake. But you can still see it's our 5.3, still with our AFR heads on it. And so we have a tune in here that should allow this thing to start up. We cannot run it to max RPM because the injectors in this intake will not safely support it with fuel with what we believe. So we have a tune in here. We believe this thing should get us to run. So that's what we are about to do. You can so let us fire this thing up. Our goal is to run this thing about 2,000 RPMs. As long as our oil pressure stays good, that's where we feel comfortable, and we'll probably run it about 10 minutes or so. So let's give it a go. So our belt is riding on the pulley right here, so we need to fix that. Okay, so we've moved our power steering pulley in some. So now we're gonna fire it back up. And it kicked our belt right off. So let me put our belt back on. Okay, so let us fire it back up. So the reason why we shut it down is because it popped our belt again because this tensioner isn't any good. But, so we got about a good 5-10 minutes of run time. We've proved proof of concept this thing runs. And then next time you will actually see it driving because this engine is going inside of my Chevelle. This will be the power plant for the Chevelle. And we're gonna have a lot of fun. So we're gonna get to not only know it runs and drives and know it's possible we can do, we're gonna run this thing at the drag strip and see how much power it makes. So I wanna say a big thank you to everybody for following us along on this journey. And remember, when they tell you it can't be done, for all things are possible with God. White One Auto, out.